question in, Armin. That's a good question. The question is there any specific mid-tier setting that you would suggest to fine-tune?
Now, I tend to validate different things, so I would not I normally my role in a project is to evaluate impact of a specific setting rather than suggest different settings. From my perspective, some of the things that I have seen make a significant difference, and that's not so much related to the settings on a mid-tier, but data, is that if you have forms that return a significant volume of data, you will see performance degradation. Some of the different versions behave differently, but I think some of the versions, there is some of the optimization with a type ahead, some of the intelligence on the forms that will try to predict what the data that before you actually type it in. Some of those things can create problems. So my experience there is on not so much on a hardware setting, but or on a system setting, but on an application itself.
Thanks for that, Armin. We have another question in from Diego. He asks, how can your tests take into account other actions not related to end-user actions that can also affect the performance of a system? For example, escalation, CMDB, jobs, integrations, etc.
Okay. I think it's the same as when you're testing before and after. You test something before the change and after the change. So when you compare the results, the difference in result is the change that you applied. It's the same process when you have a background processes. I think it's a very good point, because you run your test, you get understanding of the system behavior and performance for that particular model that you have. Then you let the background load then. And that might be escalation, that might be some data load, whatever process you need to evaluate. You repeat exactly the same test in exactly the same way. Difference is result of that background process. So that.
Okay, thank you, Armin. Do we have any more questions? I do apologise, I didn't have this question bit set up during the webinar. I just managed to switch it on at the end. Okay, we've got a couple more in. Based on your experience, what is the best response time that have been achieved in ITSM 7604?
Now, best response times, it's a little bit open-ended question, so it's a maybe I can answer it this way. Have I seen 7.6 behaving well? Yes. Have I seen for the fairly large volumes of users? The answer is yes. Have I seen the same system performing very poorly even with one user? The answer is yes again. So I'm not really sure that I can answer what is the best performance, because you may have a very good performance with one user, but as soon as you have two, things don't work, or you may have slightly less performance system, but it will scale to thousands of users easily. I think it's what your users would accept is probably the best way of looking at that. If your users will tolerate response time of 5 seconds, you're fine. If they would not tolerate 3, you have a problem. But it can be fairly seamless. I think if the well-configured system, the usage of the system and the users on the system will not really know how many of them there are on a system. They would think they have the whole system for themselves. They would have a very consistent responses from the system, and they would have a very smooth interaction with the system. So I have seen systems, well, not easy to get them out of the box like that, but they can work very, very well.
Okay, we've got quite a few questions coming through. The next one's from Gavin Coleman. Do you have any clients that utilize this testing strategy as part of everyday usage?
Yes. I think well, there are we do consulting engagement as well, and as a part of that, or as part of training, we also try to introduce methodologies that we found working. And if we get involved in early enough in a project where we can help defining testing methodology in a project, this is very often the process that will be adopted. Sometimes there is already set, and the requirements for what needs to be validated is set is already predefined where 10 or 15 transactions that we need to test those. Maybe it's not the best approach, but we need to test those. So in that case, we would try to squeeze in some of the iterative testing, because we believe the value of that is large, but it may fall down to the traditional testing. But yes, it's something that we try to introduce to our customers, and it is working well.
Okay, thank you, Armin. The next question we have is from Mohammed Kali. Have there been any major changes for Scapa tool from version 7.6.4 to 8 of Remedy? I can answer that one, Mohammed. Quite simply, we are both forwards and backwards compatible with Remedy. Let us make really major changes to their code, then which would be notified of anyway, being a TAP partner. So essentially, yeah, the way we've developed our tool is we're both forwards and backwards compatible. Don't know if you want to add to anything I just said there, Armin?
Yes, we have. I mean, the test that I showed you is version 8. The way that we designed our Remedy specific support is quite generic and flexible. So that means that you don't need a patch in order to test version 8. It also means that you can use the same tool against different versions if you need to, because some of the for us it's just the data that is contained in the transaction. We interpret that in a non-version specific way. So that means that we can, unless they decide to drop back channel completely and start communicating using a different channel, we will support next one and the next version.
Okay, another question we have here is, how do you measure system performance when the system is highly customized? Does it make any difference from the OOTB application?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Sure. It's like a double barrel question. How do you measure system performance when the system is highly customized? And the second part is, does it make any difference from the OOTB application?
Okay. It doesn't, whether it's a standard off-the-shelf application, or it's a highly customized, or it's a custom application. I recently done a project with it's not ITSM at all. It's the same. It's a web wrapper for the existing Remedy application. That's how it behaves. It goes through the back channel, it goes through the mid-tier, but the data is nothing to do with ITSM. The process is the same. Some of the data dependencies there would vary because when building a test, it's a slightly different process, but it's the same tooling. We don't have we are not dependent, as I said, not only on the version of Remedy, but we're also not dependent on ITSM itself. So that means that it's much easier to go through the process of building tests because you have flexibility there. We can expand to other. I have not mentioned that because I tried to focus on that, but we have. You mentioned that initially. We can automate a GUI if we need to. We can go on that layer. We can go one layer down. We can automate Remedy API if we need to. We can combine those in a single test. So we're very flexible in how the tests are built. But one thing important there is we're not specific to any version. And we're not linked. While we use ITSM as a very frequently applied application, there is nothing in our technology that will prevent you from use on your customized or custom application.
Okay. Okay, that's the next question. Is the license on a per server basis and other license movable from one server to another or from another group to another load balance environment? I can answer that question for you, Virgilio. We simply license our software on the amount of virtual users that you want to simulate an environment. Most people tend to go for maximum concurrency level plus 10% to give you a bit of headroom, or some people want to take it a bit further and actually max out the system to find out will it recover and so on, and what will happen when you reach the edge of capacity and beyond. So certainly we license on that basis. The licenses themselves can be moved around within the organization if you have maybe a pre-production and a post-production environment where you can test in the lab and then actually run on your main production system if you have some downtime. So hopefully that answers your question. The next question we have is, can you share with us your experience given a set of baseline information? How do we determine whether performance tuning efforts are successful and identify behavior that is unusual for your system?
Well, it's. I think what I was mentioning. Well, I have been doing this for a number of years now, and I think after a day I will tell you if your system is healthy or not. But that's partly experience. But the right approach therein is that you test before and after. So you test before you make a change and after you make a change. The difference is the change that you made. If you don't see any difference, you're not running the right test, or that doesn't make any difference to the overall capacity. So that's the easiest way of evaluating any tuning effort. When you look at the results initially, you would, as I showed you a couple of graphs, and I can maybe go back to that. You expect response from the server to be consistent. You would not expect to have a lot of variability in the response times. You expect stable behavior. You expect at some point things to slow down but to recover back on. So you want a nice, smooth scalability curve on the system. Anything other than that means that there are some issues, and depending on the type of issues, there are certain signatures that will tell you where what they might be and point you in the right direction. Also, by measuring steps individually, you can associate things to the different layers. If you measure how long it takes to run a particular search compared to saving a new incident, compared to logging in, it will already give you clues where you need to focus your optimization effort. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Armin. We have one more question. If you do have any more, please get them in now. Question is, does Scapa tool also identify expensive / long time taking query that Remedy is firing? Does Scapa tool also identify the long, I'm sure that's log time taking query?
Yes, I mean what we the main measurements that we take are always from the user perspective, and we will break them down. So we will break down that to individual steps or individual calls. That's on a transaction that we're firing. Now, you can add analysis on, if you're looking at the database level, you can add that on a database level, but as I said, we are recreating a load from the user level and measure from the user level. If something is taking very long time and it does affect the user, you'll get that straight away. If there is something that takes a long time but it may not be so obvious, you may need to run analysis on a queries on the database, and I think that's done quite easily once you have a load that would recreate the user activity so that you can actually analyze your database. I think that's. But we can collect information about utilization, certain, depending on where you're running your systems, we can pull information about the health of the systems on which the application is running.
Okay, thanks, Armin. I believe that's all the questions. Well, it just leaves me to thank everybody for taking the time to see today's webinar. Once you log out, there will be 5 short questions for a survey just to give us some feedback and try and help us understand what we could be doing better and what else we could be doing to help you guys. We're more than happy to share our experience. If people want to find out more about what we do, certainly let us know, and we'll be more than happy to talk with you. So thanks once again, and we hope to talk to you again. Oh, sorry, somebody's coming in with thanks, guys. Yep, thank you very much, Mohammed. So thanks a lot, guys, and we hope to speak with you again in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Thank you all.